Welcome to today's edition of the Randi Rhodes podcast. Turn up your mind.
You think I'm unfair to you? Do you think I've been giving
Absolutely. Of course you are, Bill. Remember when that guy said that thing about the traffic jam? Ford Lee with the... Remember?
I don't know what else to say except to tell them that I had no knowledge of this, of the planning, the execution, or anything about it. And that I first found out about it after it was over. And even then, what I was told was that it was a traffic study.
And even then, I didn't hear it because I was wearing headphones. And even then, I wouldn't have believed it because I was sure that everyone was whispering about a surprise party for me. To celebrate my premeditated and vindictive closing of the... Oh, what have I done?
Oops. Yeah. So, of course, while we were all busy watching Peyton Manning scrambling for his life, Chris Christie has been scrambling to salvage his political life and perhaps his free life as a free man. I don't know. I got to say, the traffic thing is one thing, and it's, it's kind of unbelievable what we're supposed to try to believe, and that is that you have a governor of New Jersey who is completely oblivious to the traffic reports on the radio. Now we find out he has a radio show. So I think he's familiar with the whole how to turn the radio on and that they do traffic there and that there's a little news at the top of the hour and that 101.5 FM, which is where he has his show, is a freaking local station. So I think that, he kind of knows to tune in there for like monster winter storm. Especially if you're the governor, you kind of think you'd want to know these things, like if a monster winter storm. I mean, you would turn on the radio. There's a monster winter storm, everybody, in the Northeast along the I-95 corridor. Just saying. And this isn't local. It's national. But, he doesn't understand that they do traffic on the nines or whatever it is that they, every 10 minutes, give us 20 minutes, we'll give you the world. He has no earthly idea that this goes on in the world. Nor does he apparently read the newspapers, local or any others. I don't know. I can't explain it. But I'm supposed to sit here and say he was completely out of the loop on, the George Washington Bridge, the most used bridge in the world. For 4 days when people were just sitting there stuck in traffic for 4 freaking days. Now, there was a time when you would say this and the people of Atlanta would go, oh, traffic schmaffic. We have traffic. We're the 6th largest metropolis and, we've seen traffic. So what's the big deal, Randy? Oh, crap. Yeah. That's what I'm talking about, that kind of traffic. Where you sit there for an hour and maybe you go a half a mile for 4 freaking days, okay? And there's no weather. Not that there was much in Atlanta, the 2.5 inches. 2.5 inches freaks out Georgians. You have never dated a Jersey boy. Just saying. But, I mean, last night, Governor Chris Christie did his radio show. Who knew? Who knew he has time to squeeze in a little show business? Of course, I will admit that if, show business is a totem pole, then radio is where the dog lifts its leg. But nonetheless, he thinks it's show business. I don't. He does. But he went on the radio. And, it's so interesting because what he decided to do was not answer questions. No, because it's his show. Of course, there is a live assist from a guy who, sits there and, tries to help him through his show. Because everybody thinks they can do one. But, he needs Eric Scott. Otherwise, I don't know what would happen when the clock hit, 6 after. Really don't know. I don't know what he would do. I don't know if he, would need a male diaper. I don't know if he would do the tender twist. I really, I'm not clear. So he's hosted, sort of. His show is hosted, like your website. You have one, but it's not really something you're doing. Somebody's hosting it for you. That's what goes on there. So he decided that... Wouldn't it be better if I asked the questions and then answered them myself?
Did I know anything about the plan to close these lanes? Did I authorize it? Did I know about it? Did I approve it? Did I have any knowledge of it beforehand? And the answer is still the same. It's unequivocally no. And, in fact, no one's ever accused me of that. And that's the thing that I think the people in New Jersey care about the most.
No, I think that what the people of New Jersey care about the most is the Sandy money, to tell you the truth, what they care about the most. I think also what they care about the most is how could you not notice that they were suffering for 4 days? How could you not notice when you yourself, on September 11th, this traffic jam started on the 9th, the 10th, the 11th, this is the third day, the second day of the traffic jam. Well, if you include the day of the 9th, then the day of the 10th, it's the third day of the traffic jam. And he has to go to New York because it's 9/11. Also, 9/11 is supposed to be heightened security, etc., etc. I think the people of New Jersey care more about why you don't give a rat's ass on the third day of a traffic jam that no one at Port Authority on the New York side, none of the police officers, none of the first responders, nobody was told was going to happen. I think they want to know why you had your head up your bountiful butt. I think they want to know that. So now he's saying, that I knew about them, but I just didn't think that they were, like that big of a deal. See, at first he said unequivocally, no, he did not know about them before. Now David Wildstein puts out, through his lawyer, a little note to Christie saying, I'm a spurned lover and I will not be ignored. I mean, it's what's that Michael Douglas movie? Fatal Attraction. It's Fatal Attractions, He will not be ignored. He's going to put a bunny on your stove. This guy is like freaking out over here. So he sends a message through his lawyer because, that's what you do in politics. You send a message through your lawyer because if you don't have a lawyer, nobody takes you seriously. It's politics. He sends a message to his lawyer, and what is the message? The message is, evidence exists that you did know, at least during. So now his evolving story where he didn't know before or during is now, maybe I knew during, but I didn't know before. And by the way, nobody's ever accused me of that. Well, Bridget Kelly knew before. David Wildstein knew before. We know this because the first email was time for some traffic problems in Fort Lee. And the answer was, got it. Now, nobody has a conversation like that unless the plan has been discussed prior to the plan being executed. So now we're supposed to believe everyone on his staff went rogue. I mean, like everyone. Everyone is going rogue. They're all Palinized over there. They're all just like, screw you. He palled around with terrorists. There, I said it. And he didn't know it was coming. And he still doesn't know during. He has no idea. So here's his evolving a story. Now he says, well, I knew during because I think I read something in the newspaper while he's sitting on local New Jersey radio.
When did I first know about the lane closures?
I love how he's decided the questions and the answers. So he's asking the questions and he's answering them. You would never know that there was a host there, but there is a host there.
When did I first know about the lane closures?
Yeah.
The fact
There's
is
the
that
host.
the first time this really came into my consciousness as an issue was when Pat Foy, the executive director of the Port Authority's email about this incident was leaked to the media and reported on. And that was the first time that I got a sense that there might be some issue here.
And who brought that to your attention? Was that staff?
No, it was news accounts. I mean,
But you read them personally, or did somebody bring it to your attention?
No, I read it.
You read it. Okay.
I read it. In
That's
the
a
Wall Street
mistake.
Journal.
Mm-hmm.
And it was that day then when I read that Pat Foy was saying, I didn't know about this. It wasn't cleared through me. Whatever else he said in that email.
Wait a minute.
Wait. I asked,
whatever else he said in that email. He read it in the Wall Street Journal. Pat Foy was mentioned in the Wall Street Journal, but there was no mention of his email. No mention of his email. That's something that his staff decided came from that Patrick Foy on the New York side. He's on the New York side of the Port Authority. And Patrick Foy was the one who actually pulled up the cones in the end. And Patrick Foy was the one who wrote the email to the Christie administration, to the staffers, to his chief of staff, his deputy chief of staff, to the Port Authority, to Wildstein, to Baroni, to all these people. And he was saying, this is a safety hazard. Emergency vehicles can't get through. I just hope somebody doesn't die as a result of this. What are you people doing over there? Why weren't we notified? Why weren't the police notified? Why weren't the hospitals notified? Why weren't the ambulance, companies? I mean, how in the hell are you doing this? But it didn't say that in the Wall Street Journal. In the Wall Street Journal, it just quoted Mr. Foy on the New York side saying that he had no idea that this was the title was September 17th, and the title was "Bridge Jams Cause a Mystery," and that it was a big surprise to high-ranking officials at the bi-state agency. The local lanes were reported Thursday morning. One of the people said after an order from Executive Director Patrick Foy, who argued that the abrupt shift in traffic patterns caused a threat to public safety and should have been advertised to the public ahead of time. That's all it said in the Wall Street Journal. Email.
My chief of staff and chief counsel, I said to them, hey, would you look into this and see what's going on here?
Yeah, you said that to them, right?
Now,
yeah.
If prior to that, I know prior to that there were press accounts about traffic issues up there.
Mm-hmm.
And if someone, if I either read that or someone said something to me about traffic issues up there, it wouldn't have been meaningful to me because I didn't know that there was any problem up there, because I didn't know that we had actually closed lanes up there before that. So my dispute is twofold. First, to make clear to everybody in the midst of, all the things that were reported over the weekend, that nobody has said that I knew anything about this before it happened. And I think that's the most important question.
See, this is what he wants to focus on. Nobody said I knew about it before it happened. Now he's evolving. Chris Christie is evolving, everybody, right in front of you. And you don't believe in Darwinism. This is clearly survival of the fittest. He's going to ask the questions and he's going to answer them and he's going to lie about this to Sukkot. So now he's evolving. Now it turns out that he did know about traffic problems. Didn't mean anything to him. He read about something in the Wall Street Journal with Patrick Foy and some emails, but there was nothing in the Wall Street Journal about Patrick Foy and emails. What happened was his staff were texting each other. Remember? They were emailing and texting on the Gmail saying things like, Patrick Foy is going to pick up the cones. Mr. Sampson will help us retaliate. Don't you remember? Really? So now he says, well, I heard about them when they were going on, but I never heard about them before. Before he said he didn't hear about them till after it was over, till after they occurred. Now he says if he did hear about them, he didn't think they were a matter of concern. And that's probably true because he regularly gets away with crap like this. But that's the point. And don't you remember he was out there going, yeah, I'm the guy that moved the cones. The arrogance of this man is just insane. It's insane. By the way, also in this Wall Street Journal article that he claims he read to inform him of the traffic jams in New Jersey, he's reading New York News, right, to get the info on his own state. It says that the Borough Hall was flooded with hundreds of calls from angry motorists. Mark Sokolich claims he made hundreds of calls, sent 30 emails to Christie's administration during this epidemic of traffic and said, I hope this isn't retaliatory for something I did, but we have total gridlock, he said. We called the police and they were like, we can't help you. It's coming from our higher ups, he said. And when the local police tried to ask the Port Authority leadership what was going on, they weren't returning his calls. Oh, please.
Well, I first heard about the lane closure back in September.
Yeah.
From press accounts. But, this has kind of been an evolving thing. There was no moment where I went, oh, wow, look at this.
So you didn't get that desperate phone call saying, "Oh my God, here this is," and now here we go.
No, because nobody in the administration is desperate.
Yeah.
Wow. No one in my administration is desperate enough to call me and say that there's this huge, humongous 4-day traffic jam. You know, I heard about it in September. Well, in September, like I said, this Wall Street Journal article on September 17th mentioned Patrick Foy, but does not include any emails. We didn't start seeing emails until October. Okay, so I don't know what his freaking problem is, but his administration, his staffers, obviously Bridget Kelly, his deputy chief of staff, David Sampson, his general counsel. I mean, you've got his Stepien, who's running his campaign. This was before the election, so he's talking to this guy every single day. He's in on this email loop. Everybody, you know, Wildstein obviously is in on the email loop, and Wildstein is the one that's sending out messages that's saying evidence exists. Now, if there is evidence, it won't come from Bridget Kelly. And here's why. In the middle of the show last night, Eric Scott, the host, who's hosting, both the guest and the interviewer, Chris Christie, playing both roles tonight will be. Yeah, he's a better actor than Philip Seymour Hoffman.
Bridget Ann Kelly, you fired her because you said she lied to you. She was the one who sent that email, time for some traffic problems in Fort Lee. The Star-Ledger is just reporting now that the lawyer for Kelly is citing her Fifth Amendment rights and that she will not hand over subpoenaed documents to the Legislative Committee. What does that tell you?
You know, listen, it doesn't tell me anything. I know everything I needed to know from a point of employment for Bridget Kelly when she didn't tell me the truth, and I fired her. And what I've said as to all these people are that have lawyers now is that I hope they would share information with us, but I also understand that people have rights, and they're going to exercise those rights as they see fit and as their lawyers advise them to do so. I would hope they would share any information they had that would let me get to the bottom of it. But on the other hand, they have constitutional rights like everybody else, and if they're going to exercise them, there's nothing I can do about that, Eric. But we're certainly going to be asking and have asked for information from folks, and if folks give it to us, great, and if they don't, because they say they're exercising their constitutional rights, I don't think any of us can be critical of someone for exercising their constitutional rights.
Oh, what a governor. The chief law enforcement officer. Not going to hold anybody in contempt. Doesn't want his prosecutors to hold anybody in contempt. You know why? Because he doesn't want anybody to talk. This is like amazing. Well, you know, she's got right. Well, then how's anybody ever compelled to testify? I mean, then why doesn't everybody invoke their Fifth Amendment right? She not only took her Fifth Amendment right, she took her Fourth Amendment right. They're working their way up to the second, which is a little scary, a little frightening to me. They start invoking their Second Amendment rights. I'm a little freaked out by this. But everyone's lawyering up and hunkering down. And, you know, Chris Christie, well, he can't run and hunker at the same time, even if he wasn't Chris Christie. But, yeah, right in the middle of the show, she invokes her Fifth, her Fourth. You had a resignation right ahead of the Super Bowl. You got everybody fishing for immunity. Stepien also took his Fifth yesterday. This thing is just a mess. And he's like, well, they have their constitutional rights, you know. I find this fascinating. People go to jail all the time for contempt, because they won't testify when subpoenaed and compelled to do so. What? I've never seen a judge go, okay, all right then. She says no, let's move along.
Traffic would still be backed up in Fort Lee if it wasn't for the email, Mr. Foy.
That's exactly right.
Many months later. I mean, we asked, many of us, I asked exactly on September the 13th when I wrote the letter to the Port Authority. Still never got an answer. I mean, no one's kidding anybody here. We want the facts. There's very little transparency in this administration, whether we're talking about the bridge or whether we're talking about Sandy money, which is all coming out. It's all going to come out. All the facts are going to be on the table. The issue is not the governor. The issue is the people who suffered in Fort Lee and the people who suffer because they're not back into their homes or they don't know where they're coming or going, whether they're down the shore or in North Jersey that were affected by that. And I have an obligation. I have a responsibility. I fought for that money, as did every congressman Republican and Democrat in the state of New Jersey. We want to know how the money's being spent. We want to know who is overseeing this. Who has the responsibility of monitoring? The governor knows a lot about monitoring. When he was in the U.S., when he was a U.S. attorney, he monitored many of the major corporations that were shafting the American public. He knows about monitoring. Who do you put in that position to oversee? I don't want to hear this, that we can't come up with an independent study to see how the money's being spent concerning the Sandy money. And I don't want to hear that we still don't know months later what happened. Where was he? What was he, in New Mexico? Where was he, in Nova Scotia when all this was going on? And we have pictures that he's with his people on September the 11th, right in the heart of the backup of the traffic. I personally believe Mayor Sokovich. That's who I believe. You can believe whoever you wish.
That was Congressman Steve Pasquale, who is from New Jersey, and together with Frank Pallone, who is also from New Jersey, they have asked for the Federal Department of Housing and Urban Development to investigate and independently monitor this big-ass block grant that went to New Jersey, block grant with no oversight, for Chris Christie to spend any way he wanted. And, of course, the Christie administration has not been forthcoming about any aspect of the distribution of the Sandy money, and, they're hoping that the federal government might loosen the tongues over there in New Jersey. But, HUD, which is the Department of Housing and Urban Development, there's an article today. Well, it's not today. It was from last week, late last week. Remember, Sandy, just let me give you the dates because it's always good to have a little timeline on your hands. October 27th was Sandy. October, okay? Keep October in your head. They didn't even have anybody looking at how this money was going to be distributed, but it says that HUD should start by investigating the hiring and firing of, this is really stunning, Hammerman and Gaynor Inc., a Sandy housing recovery firm that was awarded a 3-year, $68 million contract in May. That's why I bring up Sandy happened in October. November, December, January, February, March, April, May. 7 months after Sandy, they go out and they hire this company to oversee the recovery money. 7 months later. Then in December of just last month, they paid this firm $7 million to terminate them from their oversight role. But they never announced it publicly until last week. And they didn't give any explanation for why they fired this company that they hired 7 months after Sandy to oversee the distribution of the first $780 million in Sandy aid. Now, the paper, the Bergen Daily Record, says, in some ways it isn't surprising that Hammerman Gaynor Inc. was given the boot. It has been rightly criticized for poor performance with Sandy victims, and advocates airing a long list of grievances ranging from confusing grant rejection letters to lack of clarity in how to get help. And those criticisms echoed the criticisms that were leveled against that same company following Hurricane Katrina in 2005. So Chris Christie goes out 7 months later and hires a company that had such poor performance in 2005 following Hurricane Katrina in monitoring those recovery dollars. Hires them they said that there were only 2 companies that bid, one bid against the other. He chose HGI. Hired them for $68 million 7 months after the fact, and then fired them last December, but did it quietly and not publicly. And they said that in the bidding process, the 2 companies were only given 5 days to submit their proposals. And they're asking for HUD, the federal government HUD, to explore whether a $25,000 donation, there it is, A $25,000 donation by HGI's law firm, Capehart Scatcherd, to the Republican Governors Association shortly before HGI received the contract was a coincidence. It's just a coincidence. Now, Lisa Ryan, a spokeswoman for the State Department of Community Affairs, declined to say whether a new contract will be awarded to replace HGI. So there is no oversight over the Sandy money, which means Christie gets to decide who gets it and how much. They say this puts the process in a kind of limbo, a place victims of Sandy can ill afford to be. And Pallone and Pascrell noted that in their letter to HUD. Quote, we fought too hard for these federal disaster recovery dollars. Remember, these Pascrell and Pallone are, in the House of Representatives. They're federal. And they fought for this money to get appropriated to New Jersey. The money did get appropriated to New Jersey, but nobody knows where it went. He said, we fought too hard for these federal disaster recovery dollars to stand by while they are recklessly mismanaged. HUD needs to come up with answers to questions about what went wrong. Real answers, not the kind of administration double talk we've been hearing, like the conclusion of our relationship with HGI was coordinated and efficient with no interruption in services following a mutual agreement between the parties as the state transitions into the next phase of the housing recovery programs. The Bergen County Record says, they say, we are confident any review will show the state continues to manage Sandy recovery funds in the best interest of the people of New Jersey. Bergen County Record says, we are not so confident. The federal government has an obligation to find out.
Power corrupts, and absolute power corrupts absolutely. And no one can prove to me that this administration has been transparent on a number of issues. There are questions that are hanging out there. You want me to believe that it took this email to get the governor to even think about that? What did he do about it? I want to know what the governor did after he got the email, after he found out, regardless of where he first read it.
Now we find out that Governor Chris Christie secured $6 million in federal Hurricane Sandy recovery dollars to a town that was listed on the places that were hardest hit by Sandy, that came in at number 188. Places most devastated by Sandy. This particular town came in at 188 of the worst hit places. And they wanted to build a senior center and a housing complex in this town called Belleville. Belleville came in 188th of the places worst hit by Sandy in New Jersey. It was personally, the $6 million for the senior center was personally pushed by the Republican governor, was announced less than 2 weeks before the town's Democratic mayor formally endorsed him, and had absolutely nothing to do with Sandy, because on the list of places in New Jersey that were hardest hit by Sandy, this place came in 188th, and Hoboken was underwater, and Dawn Zimmer has explained to you what she had to go through to get just 0.1% of what she needed to get Hoboken, some sort of a flood relief program going. I mean, so you sit there and you just say, oh, everybody went rogue on Chris Christie. Chris Christie was a good, honest politician until he hired all these miscreants, all these bad people. And he's suffering because he's a bad hirer. He just didn't have taste in people. I got to tell you, this Sandy money is really, this is the big kahuna. This is the whole enchilada. This is the thing that people are going to sit up, because these are our federal tax dollars that New Jersey's congressional delegation asked for, that New Jersey's senators asked for to help, recover from a hideous, unbelievable storm. And you can see now, the whole Northeast is getting slammed over and over. Something has gone on with the jet stream. There is so much moisture in the air, and so much cold air is coming further and further south than ever before, to the point where friends of mine who are living in Kentucky tell me it was -6 degrees in Kentucky in the morning. -6 degrees. People are like, oh my God. Look at Atlanta. Look at what's going on. But beyond that, we're going to need to make sure that when these disasters hit, because they don't want to do anything about them ahead of time. So we're going to have to make sure now that we've got all this disaster relief money overseen so that when you get creamed, somebody actually shows up with a check for your city, so your city can do whatever it needs to do to dig you out, to pump you out, whatever it's got to do. But we do these block grants. They go right into the hands of, governors. They don't hire anybody to do the oversight. All of a sudden, it becomes a political slush fund. And they go around trying to buy endorsements or trying to buy, legislators or trying to buy mayors or trying to buy whatever it is that they need to purchase in order for them to stay in power. And they don't care if they have to send a dirty message by using public, transportation, public bridges, roads, tunnels. They don't care. They don't care. You're just an inconvenience to them, but you got to look at like this whole administration, and he's running around going, "This is just a game of gotcha." Gotcha is only a game when there's nothing to get you on. When there's something to get you on, it's not a game. It's called the pursuit of justice. But, if you look at this timeline here, on January 9th, he said he didn't have any relationship with Mr. Wildstein. He didn't know him. He was Christie was the class president and an athlete, and, he didn't know who Wildstein was. And then when Wildstein, resigns, he calls him a tireless advocate for the people of New Jersey. Then Wildstein comes forward and says evidence exists that the governor knew about this stuff. And then all of a sudden, they've got dirt on Mr. Wildstein going back to the time when he was 16 years old. I thought he didn't know this guy. I thought he was busy being the class president and an athlete, and he didn't know David Wildstein. Then he claims on January 9th in that same stupid press conference that he hadn't seen Wildstein in a long, long time. Except that there's pictures of them together on 9/11 in the heart of the traffic jam on the other side, on the New York side. A few months is not a long, long time. And if Mr. Wildstein is such a creepy, strange guy, and he's a bad man, and he was a cheater way back in social studies class in high school, oh my God, he actually says this, then why did he create a job for Mr. Wildstein at the Port Authority that paid him more than $150,000 a year? Do you normally give somebody that cheated in social studies class a checkered past, a guy who you said had a difficult time as mayor of Livingston? Do you create a job for him, especially for him at the Port Authority, without even asking him to submit a resume? No, you don't. And now they're all going to take the fifth. And this is, I told you, Bridget Kelly hired a mob lawyer. And like I said yesterday, I don't know if I watch too many movies. I really don't know. Or if that I know too many guys from Jersey. But I was, we were all hanging out this weekend, Saturday night, and we were talking about this. And Jimmy says to me over here, all's I'm saying, because that's how Jimmy talks. He says, Ran, all's I'm saying is you don't hire a mob lawyer. They hire you as a client. They come get you, and they say, here's what we're going to do about this, and you just follow this prescription. You do what I tell you. And now they're all taking the fifth and the fourth. They won't turn over any documents because it's an invasion of privacy is what it is. And that's why they use their Gmail. Well, it's my personal email. Oh, this story, let me tell you something. They're all fishing for immunity. All of them. But the ugliest part of this whole thing is the Sandy money for me. $6 million to build a senior center in a town that had plans to do this for a really long time but could never get the funding, couldn't get the money. Then he gets the Sandy money, and all of a sudden this real well-connected guy from this town who's like a real, New Jersey Paul, been around a really long time, knows just how to work the system. He says, get the mayor to endorse me, and somehow the money will show up. And the mayor does endorse him, and the money does show up. And this town was not hurt by, like I said, on the list. Hoboken was right up there. Seaside was right up there. They were 188th on the list of people that suffered damage, and they get $6 million. it makes me ill. It really does. Because you're talking about people who are still living in trailers. You're talking about people that are still out of their houses. People who are still living in their houses where the mold is just growing and growing. And it's really, that'll make you sicker than hell. And they're all getting rejection letters. It's amazing. But you have the senior center in the town, on the list of places damaged, it's 188. And they get $6 million. Oh. It's a shame. So everybody's got their subpoenas now, and you've got Fourth and Fifth Amendments being invoked for not just I would incriminate myself if I testified, or I'm afraid I will, but also I'm not turning over any documents. This vow of silence, it's just an amazing thing. It's like the Omuerta, and that's the way it seems to be going. Everybody has taken their fifth. Wildstein's taken the fifth. Steppian's taken the fifth. Bridget Kelly's taken the fifth. Christie says, I'll participate in anything that you want me to. He got subpoenaed. The former office where he worked got subpoenaed. He says, I'll cooperate. Yeah, I got to tell you, the sickest part of all this is how insignificant the constituents are in all this. How the people aren't, they're not even being, spoken to, apologized to. A mistake was made. This traffic study should never. He's still saying, I don't know if it was a traffic study. I don't know what happened here. I have no idea. Was this a political thing that turned into a traffic study, or a traffic study that turned into a political thing? But it doesn't matter. The people can suffer. He doesn't think the traffic was important. He doesn't read the newspaper. He didn't read the newspaper until September 17th, and the thing was over on September 12th. He doesn't pay any attention to it while it's going on. He doesn't pay any attention to it after it's gone on. He doesn't listen to the radio station. He's not getting the traffic reports. He's not reading the local newspapers where the traffic warrior, who is the guy that broke the story in the first place, was reporting this gridlock and saying it was unbelievable and no one could explain it and what was going on. And the mayor of Fort Lee is calling hundreds of people, hundreds of times, calling the Port Authority, calling the newspapers, calling anybody he can get to listen to him, going, what is going on? What is going on? And Christie just says, I just didn't think it was, important. And then the question, did anybody from your administration call you, out of desperation to let you know? No, because my staff isn't desperate. My staff has constitutional rights. They don't have to testify. They don't have to turn over documents. They don't have to do anything. Well, good luck to us all. Good luck to us all if that's what we get. But, they're the party of freedom, of movement, and liberty. Right. Transparency. Scamming, always scamming. Stealing, always stealing.
You're listening to Randy. Randy Rhodes podcasting online and on demand.